the Garnet and Old members only show. It's not Thursday or 7 o'clock, but we are still here to do a show for all of you. I'm Ryan. That is Vince. Vince, how are you today on this Sunday at 6:30?
I am enjoying the weekend, Ryan. I brought myself a little beverage for this evening for our discussion. I don't know if you're doing that or not, but yeah, the weekend's been good. I went to Tallahassee yesterday
Mm-hmm.
and went and watched the basketball team look completely ridiculous. But I noticed that Luke Laux was up in 80 Alford's box during the game. So I wonder what's coming of that. Um, but I had a good time. We also, guess what, Ryan? Guess where we went to dinner?
Uh, Kushas,
Gordo's, my friend.
Gordos. Oh,
Delicious.
serving the best of Cuban food since 1985.
That's right. That's right. We had a really good meal there. We were only, we went over there in the morning, went to the game, went to have dinner, and then just drove home because, as you have stated multiple times, Ryan, that the hotel prices are out of this world. So
How much? Just curious. How much were they for if you were to have stayed?
it would have been probably like $300-$400.
That seems on the high side.
Mm, mm.
Hopefully, I'm coming through clear and near end because when I talk, I can kind of hear a like static feedback, and then it goes away after I stop talking.
I don't hear that, so I think
That's
you
good.
might be okay. But yeah,
We are.
so we have not done a members only show for a while, and uh, we had kept teasing that we were going to do it. So here we are.
Yep.
And Ryan, I appreciate you carving some time out this evening so we could give a little bit of fun banter to our membership.
Yeah, and I like these kind of episodes because it's the off season. There's not like we're not talking about a football game or anything like that, and so we thought it would be fun to do kind of our favorite TV shows and movies episode. Um, I have put mine, Vince, and we'll start with TV shows. Let's just pick. We'll do that. I have put mine in the order in which I feel about them as of today, in a top 10 perspective. Whereas you gave your essentially a list, but not necessarily in any particular order. It's almost like I asked you to pick your favorite child. It's hard to do. I can tell you the list, guys, I give in the order in which I give it is how I feel about it. This list today. But
Right.
if you were to ask me a week from now, I could be on a different level on how I'm feeling about some of these. So, we want me to kick it off.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about what you said, though. I mean, favorite kids. Like, I don't really have a favorite kid. There are certain
Right.
days that a certain kid is a little more in tune with what's going on than the other day,
Yeah.
but that switches. So movies are the same way. So you have a list, right? And I have more than 10 for some of these, but it was tough for me to put them in any
Your audio's going out.
order. My audio is going out.
Yeah, for a second, like it faded out completely, like almost like it was coming through the AirPods.
Great.
But I'll go ahead and kick things off with my number 10 TV show. It was a tough one because I had a few that I was kind of playing around with. When you get to that 10 level, there's a bunch of shows that you would like to have in your list, but you got to put one on there. I decided to go with Succession. So for those that haven't watched Succession, which I was very late to, I didn't see it until the final season was live, like in real time in the final season. I did not start it until that moment, which is great because there's pros and cons to doing that. It's fun to watch a show the whole time while it's going on, but it's also really fun to be able to blaze through a show that you really, really like. And um, Succession is a interesting and special show. HBO at its finest, of course. HBO has been known for generations to be, the kind of the, no pun intended, the godfather of premiere television. And Succession is no different. And what I like about Succession, Vince, and I don't know if you've seen it or not, and we may have some crossover shows on this list, which is fine too. But Succession, in a nutshell, is a media conglomerate owner, old man, 70 or 80 years old, and all his kids are essentially, three kids are fighting for the right to essentially take their dad's place at the top of the company when he steps down. However, they all have a ton of flaws, personality flaws, personal flaws, that at different times in the show, it looks like their dad is going a different way. And sometimes it seems like he's just gaslighting them into giving them false hope. But what's fun is how they play off each other. And shout out, the last thing I'll say about it, because again, this I don't think we'll go into serious spoilers for any of our shows or television or movies or anything.
Yeah, that would be wrong.
Why we like it or why it's special to us. But shout out to I forget his first name, but Macaulay Culkin's brother. I forget his name.
Kieran.
Yeah, Kieran Culkin. A absolute joy to watch on the screen, and I didn't even know it was his brother until like 3 seasons in. I said, "Man, he reminds me of someone." And then I saw the credits. I was like, "It can't be," and it sure is. So he is just a character that if you haven't seen the show, you will never forget. That's for sure. He makes sure that you won't ever forget how outrageous his character is. Sometimes unbelievable to the point of absurdity, but that's the what makes this character special. So, Succession is my number 10. Vince, give us your first one.
You're number 10. Okay, you're going backwards. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that one of my favorite shows of all time, and again, maybe not in any kind of order, but I would have to say The Muppet Show.
Hey, I like that. I love the Muppets, by the way.
So, considering that the Muppet Show when that came out, was a variety show, and there was a different guest stars like were clamoring to be on that show, and the biggest stars of the time wanted to be on that show. That's how popular that show was, and I just recall waiting from week to week for the next episode of the Muppet Show. There's genius in there. Everybody knows this. There's genius in the Jim Henson world.
Mm-hmm.
There's creativity in that world. There's also a complete understanding of entertainment from young kids all the way through the adults that are watching this show.
Yeah.
And whenever you can combine those things and you're able to capture an audience with that kind of wide age range,
yeah,
it is masterful. It's masterful.
Yeah.
And so, I love everything having to do with the Muppets in general.
Yeah.
I've seen all the Muppet movies, whatever they are. I can enjoy Fraggle Rock, right? Fraggle Rock, also a fantastic series.
Directly inspired.
Directly inspired. And again, not in any particular order for me, but when I started thinking about shows that when I think are deep in my soul, the Muppet Show is definitely one of them.
Yeah, shout out to all the Muppet products because I have to enjoy all the movies. Meanwhile, I both laugh like hysterically at each and every one of the movies. And A Muppet Christmas Carol is one of my favorite Christmas movies.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. It may be the best adaptation of that genre of that story.
And we do have our first comment live watching our members only show. Lori writes the elementary school equivalent of water cooler talk, discussing the Muppet Show on the playground the next day.
Oh, for sure. What is it that Gonzo is going to destroy at the end of the opening credit or the opening song? Yeah. What is he going to blow that's not going to work?
Yep.
And I love the Muppet Show and everything to do with the Muppets.
And I hope everyone else's allergies are also destroying their lives for the last 2 days with all the pollen on the cars. My eyes are having fun.
We actually left our cars out in the rain to kind of wash some of the pollen off the cars.
All right, I'm going to move to number 9. Now, some of these shows on my list and movies, some are simply based on the content, and some of them are based on why and time of life and who you were with.
Absolutely.
So this is a who you are with and the reason behind it, not necessarily if you were to watch it as like, wow, that's the top 10 greatest show of all time. Number 9 for me is the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Okay, so I was an early teen, preteen. I think I was 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. And my sister was 4 years older than me, and I thought my sister, and I still do, was the coolest person in the world.
Wow, what a sentiment, Ryan.
Yeah, I really thought she was like no one is cooler than my sister. She drives. And she has all these friends, which some of them as getting into early preteens you might have found pretty attractive.
Sure.
Um, but this was the show that would come on right before my bedtime that my sister would be like, "Come watch it with me."
Right.
And so it was a huge show at the time for teens. Uh, Little, probably adult for my age, but because I got to watch it with my sister, it made me feel like I was like walking on the edge, like watching something I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
And because of that, I have throughout my life, when I'm feeling nostalgic, watched a season or two just to kind of get back in that mindset. And it does. The second the theme song hits, takes me back to a time or place, and you makes you feel how you felt then. Which is again, I would not call this the most content rich show, but it is a time and the place. So I'm putting it at number 9.
All right. So I'll stay on that track with you. Time and place, and that takes you back, and is just a hallmark part of your growing up. The Batman series from the '60s
Mm-hmm.
for me. Batman is my all-time favorite hero. I've seen pretty much all the movies. I'm not much of a comic book reader, but the TV shows.
Yeah,
I was Batman for multiple Halloweens in a row. Um, and, you know, again, this is just like the Muppet Show. The Batman series was also a series that all of the stars of the day wanted to be a villain on. So you're talking about Burgess, uh,
mm-hmm.
Burgess Meredith, right? Who was the Penguin? Caesar Romero, who's the Joker. Julie Newmar was Catwoman, or Eartha Kitt. There were a few different versions of that, and just on and on and on. And so much so that I bought the DVD set a
Yeah,
number of years ago. But Batman in the '60s, Batman, and sometimes if you're paying attention online on Twitter or whatever, someone will post a GIF or a meme of that series.
yeah,
Batman running around with the bomb,
doing
right?
the
Right. He running around with the bomb, or Batman with the shark spray,
yeah,
right? Or Batman doing the bat dance.
yeah,
So for me, that is a time in my life that is, young Vince, 7, 8, 9 years old,
mm-hmm.
in syndication at that point, right?
Yeah,
So I would not miss it. Same bat time, same bat channel, and it was a two-part thing. So it was a cliffhanger. Every show was a cliffhanger. It
yeah,
was a two-parter. So you'd have the first half, then you'd have to wait a week for the second half.
yeah. The good old days of syndicated TV, where you still did not. You were hoping that you caught a new episode that you hadn't seen before.
Sure.
Yeah. Great pick, and that show clearly has affected many people's lives. In fact, so much so, probably inspiring many a writer, director, producers who today are in at the top of their game, who would probably point to that show as a very influential show in their upbringing. My number 8 is a Ryan show. No one else. Sometimes I watch it with everyone else, but who's interested in it. But this is a Ryan through and through show. Watched it from the beginning in high school and in college, and I still love it. And that's the IT Crowd. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of like British humor shows, but what I like about the IT Crowd it wasn't overly British. It was they didn't no heavy accents or anything like that, so you could more readily understand it. But the humor being my line of work, your line of work, but the humor around working in IT support when that I was in college at the time, going to get my degree in IT support. It was all the talk in my college program, and so much so I've watched every episode 10 times over. What I like about this show is there's only 5 seasons, and each one's like 6 episodes, so there's not a
Mhm.
lot of content. And
Right.
sometimes that makes a show more special because it's like it didn't overstay its welcome. Every episode is to be enjoyed. And some of the stars have gone on to do major things. I mean, um, one of the stars was the main um, love interest in Bridesmaids for
Mm.
Kristen Wiig. Um, a lot of you who have watched What Lies in the Shadows, I think it's called, um, Matthew Barry, who's one of the vampires, is in that show. But yeah, really, really funny show. Highly recommend it. I think it's on Netflix still. The IT Crowd.
Yeah, it's really good. And when you're talking about the types of shows that you're kind of into it, and maybe the people you are talking to, or you're friends with, your friend crowd is kind of into it too, but you're not necessarily doing it together per
Yeah.
se. I will throw one at you. Late Night with David Letterman.
Yeah.
That nostalgia of him and the irreverence of David Letterman. So late night, he was pushing the envelope on what can you get away with, what can you say because
Yep.
it's late at night. What are the things that what is the just absurdity that you could do and say, and the types of people that you can bring on. I'm telling you, Ryan, every every day after watching the night before, there was some kind of quote or some kind of sketch or some kind of skit or a musical guest or something like that. And we were talking about it all the time.
hmm Isn't it funny how late night shows the medium works across generation? Because my Letterman was Conan. I was a big Conan O'Brien fan, so that's not on my list. But Conan O'Brien, I believe, if you were to ask most of the maybe 10 years younger the crowd than me,
Sure.
would probably say Jimmy Fallon.
Yep.
Which by the way, I do really actually enjoy Jimmy Fallon as well. I think he's pretty funny. But it's funny how everyone has their late night host.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
Jimmy Fallon to me, I love Jimmy Fallon. I love the fact that he doesn't take himself seriously.
yeah, that's what I like
And,
about
and
Conan too.
and Letterman was the same way. I mean, to be honest with you, other than maybe Jay Leno took himself a little too seriously, I think sometimes.
Yeah,
But most of the late night shows, Craig Ferguson, isn't that one of the guys that was doing it for a
yeah.
while?
Jon Stewart
Um,
still
Jon
doing it. I
Stewart. I
love Jon
mean,
Stewart.
those whole late night shows, from the Tonight Show to the late show with Letterman, and then the late show with whoever was doing that. The later you got in the evening, the weirder things got.
Yeah,
Larry Bud Melman, Super Dave Osborne,
yeah.
like all these guys from the Letterman time, are stuck in my brain.
Very unique look Letterman had too.
Oh yeah,
Um,
he has a very unique look right now
yeah,
with the huge beard.
yeah. It's interesting how he went. I think he was just shaved it for so long that he was like, "Why not? Let's go." Post retirement beard. Getting into seven, I believe. This is where we go. Pure content earned at this spot. Um, all their age, probably on a lot of people's top 10 list. Breaking Bad.
Hmm.
Breaking Bad was one of those shows that if you told anyone about the show, like explained a bit what it's about, you'd be like, well, that doesn't sound enjoyable, or maybe even sounds kind of like, that's not my thing. But it was so well written, so well acted with people that you never expected, like Bryan Cranston, who had, I only knew it from Malcolm in the Middle,
Yeah.
that you didn't have to give anyone the warning of, hey, give it a couple episodes. Episode one it was immediate. Like, oh wow, that even if you don't really like the subject matter, like wow, really well acted, great character development, and it just continues on from there. And this, I think, Breaking Bad amongst all shows is the definition of they knew what the start was, they knew what the finish was. They didn't drag it out over too many seasons, which will have a few more on my list that did. Um, they knew what they were doing. They knew the story they wanted to tell, and so there was no wasted time. And no wasted time meant every episode was a banger. Now, not a super rewatchable show for me because it's very intense. It's very sad at times, and it almost takes a lot out of you to watch some of the scenes. So I would say I've watched it twice over in total, but not one I'm like I can't. I'm going to go back and rewatch it for nostalgia's sake because it's just heavy, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
nonetheless amazing.
Yeah. So that's important. It's an important categorization here because you've got shows that are kind of in and of themselves from week to week. It's just compartmentalized and you can enjoy it and move on. And then there are shows that are serialized that if you're going to be in, you're going to be in for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm getting to some of those for me.
If
But
you
I
have
like,
any that are on my list too, I'll tell you where they were on my list.
okay, yeah, I'm sure I do. I'm sure I do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and jump in here and say Saturday Night Live.
Oh, infinitely rewatchable.
So, and as time would have it, tonight is the
50th
50th
anniversary.
anniversary show tonight, and hopefully everybody's going to watch that. You know, you're going to have how many times in your life, Ryan, has someone brought up Saturday Night Live, and someone always says, "Well, it used to be funny." It's like
Uh,
every time.
every time because whatever generation that you watched it when you were in your youth, you think that was the best, and that's the honest answer.
Right, and that's true. But even the times that I think about,
I actually think now it's really good.
they had some clunker shows.
Yeah.
Don't think they didn't. And this is the wisdom of years. You can look back and go, yeah, that episode really wasn't that funny. But what you remember, the things that stick to you, are what you remember.
Mm-hmm.
So Saturday Night Live is another thing, just like the Letterman thing. We would be quoting things for weeks after this, and
Yeah.
whether it's Hans and Franz, or Eddie Murphy doing Gumby, or Eddie Murphy's
Yeah.
Celebrity Hot Tub. Billy Crystal was on for a while, right? Dana
Yeah.
Carvey and all the church lady,
Yeah.
and Wayne's World started there, and so
Ladies
that
Man.
was what'd you say?
The Ladies Man, Tim Meadows.
Oh yeah, all of that is kind of in the realm of when I was like, really focused in on it. And then, some of the guys leave or whatever, and some new people come in. I really am a huge fan of Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler. I can take Chris Kattan or not. He's not really one of my favorites. I
Tina
like
Fey.
Tina Fey. I like Keenan Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
They've just had, it always seems like in every generation, in every cast, there's always one or two that tend to elevate the whole group.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as the writing is good, then and that's where the ebbs and flows would come from, right? The
Yeah.
performers are the performers, but it seems like the times where there were some dry spells, the writers weren't so
Yeah.
great. But so if you're watching that tonight, I'm gonna watch it tonight.
It was last night.
Every
Saturday, last night.
well, tonight's
Oh, the actual anniversary.
the actual thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a red carpet thing tonight. And then they had a concert last night, I think.
Yep. Yeah. And one of my favorite moments of it was someone from my generation. Again, everyone has their favorite people, right? Which by the way, I love all the people you mentioned. Those are legends. Adam Sandler and made his career.
Yeah.
Made his
Yeah.
entire career. But for me, like Andy Samberg,
Andy Samberg. Yep.
me in my teens, Andy Samberg and Lonely Island came from that, and Hot Rod, which is a ridiculously good movie, but underrated in my opinion. If you like slapstick humor,
Yep.
yeah, Andy Samberg was hilarious. Kenan Thompson, actually, I had twice because I grew up in All That, watching All That Nickelodeon,
Right.
and he
And then he
starred in
had
that from the
and
beginning.
then he had the skit "What's Up with That"
Hmm.
on Saturday Night Live, which was hilarious.
Yeah,
Jason Sudeikis.
yeah,
Uh, by the way, Ted Lasso is not on my list, but
hmm,
probably should be.
yeah. Good show, but great pick by the way. SNL all time. Some of my favorite stars came out of SNL. Number six for me. I'm rewatching it right now for the like probably fifth time.
Lost.
Dexter.
Oh, Dexter.
Dexter is a special show in a different way. It's as dark as Breaking Bad, but more levity moments and funny moments and oh my god moments, and it's a little bit more outlandish and unbelievable, which makes it more palatable. Breaking Bad felt very real, like this could be really be happening and affecting people's lives. But Dexter, you know, what other show, if you explain to someone, hey, he's a serial killer that only kills bad people that got off on a technicality from like a crime they
Right.
committed,
Right.
and he works for the Miami Metro Police Department in forensics. And at one point, he even works on them investigating his own murders.
Right. Right.
That is a great premise. If you were to write that just like and never seen Dexter and wrote that as a premise, like, hey, what do you think about this premise? You'd be like, oh, okay. I can already see how it'd be enjoyable because he knows he's a policeman, he knows how to cover up his tracks, and it could put him in some unique circumstances which he gets his own people, his own friends investigating his own crimes.
Right.
It's fun. Uh, Sometimes you'll be like, I know I should be saying he's a murderer and bad person, but screw that guy he just killed. You know? So it kind of gives you a moral dilemma multiple times in the show. And great acting. And that's why they're using him and doing reboots with him now and everything, because people love that show. It was a Showtime
Yeah.
show back in the day.
Yeah.
So shout out to Lost, my number six. Really good show.
Yeah. Dexter.
Dexter, yeah.
Dexter. Yeah. I was trying to stay in line with you with the types of things you're saying. Remember, mine are not necessarily in any order like
Yeah.
Ryan's are, just so we're all clear here. I'm going to throw in right now Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Knew that was coming.
I love Star Trek, the original series, and I love it because my dad and I watched it together, right? And it's a good series, but it's not the Next Generation.
Yeah.
And the Next Generation is just full of great character development. It's full of great writing, morality plays. Star Trek has always been a mirror on society. And even when I didn't understand all that
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger, when I understand it more now, it's actually even better now when I rewatch them.
Yeah.
And whether you are if you're a science fiction fan in general, there's kind of this thing between, are you a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan? They're very different.
Completely different.
Star Wars is more of an action shoot 'em up kind of deal,
Yeah.
and Star Trek is more of a soap opera. It's more of
A thinking
thinking thing,
Yeah.
and I enjoy them both. But the Next Generation to me, whenever they're on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of those things where you don't have. It's not necessarily, some of the episodes are a continuation, but it's not necessarily you have to watch it in order.
Yeah.
So if there's an episode on, I will absolutely watch it. And on that channel, is it MeTV? I think every night, I think it starts with the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. Every night, it's one after another. And so my geekdom has to come out a little bit here. And Ryan, you're aware of this with me.
Yeah.
Star Trek Next Generation is definitely in my top 10.
Absolutely. My number 5, it's going to be on your list, I know. My number 5 is Walking Dead.
We can
Uh,
talk about that one together.
yes. Walking Dead, I was with from the beginning, from episode 1 when it came out. Um, some people fell off throughout the years. I didn't, and Vince knew that because we talked about the show while it was still on live for many years. Um, of course, it had some low moments where it was, I
How
would
many
say this,
seasons? 11
10.
seasons?
I think 10 or 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the spinoffs, which are, well, that's those, I like them too. But there was a few moments. I think a lot of people, like for me, like the walk to Terminus, it felt
Walk like a
terminal.
walk.
And there were some questionable like decisions on letting people go too soon. Like I thought Shane was a great character. I would love to have seen Shane stick around. But as a whole, I enjoyed every season for what it was. Some people liked the earlier seasons and fell off. I would contend that the last 2 seasons were as good as the first few. I think it had a lull right before Negan, which I think is season 7 or 8.
Yeah.
In that late four after the governor before Negan, there was a lull that lost a lot of audience. But from Negan till the end of the show, if you know about Walking Dead, I thought they told some really interesting stories. My only gripe, Vince, and I'll let you. I know you have a lot to say about the show too. My only gripe with The Walking Dead is too many characters. So much so that even as a fan who's watched it multiple times, if I rewatch the show, I'll be like, "Who is that again? What's her name again? Oh, I forgot that person even existed."
Mhm.
Like they did too much with too many people and tried to make you care about everyone, and you kind of a lot of people got lost in the shuffle aside from the core.
Right.
But fantastic show. My favorite character still to this day, Rick Grimes, the OG, my man.
Mhm.
Um, his story arc was interesting the entire time from start to finish, in my opinion.
While I'm about to gear up my Walking Dead stuff here, Lori wanted to pipe something in here about Dexter, so I want to make sure you saw this.
Yeah,
I was down with Dexter until he took on his protege. I'm not familiar with the show.
it's late
Then
in
it
the
jumped.
season. Yeah.
Then it jumped the shark, which I understand that reference. Jumped the shark.
Hmm.
That is a Happy Days thing. So,
Yeah.
so The Walking Dead. I'm unlike you, Ryan. I did not watch it from day one. I was I was what is zombie stuff didn't appeal to me. My sister was heavy into zombie stuff. So she's the type of person that would go to Halloween horror nights
Yeah.
and like do all the garb, right?
Yeah.
Really, really into it. And by the way, really good at that too. So I think I maybe started watching it in when season 3 hit, and was one of those things where, like you mentioned, if you're not watching it from day one, there's some benefit to that because you can just blaze through a bunch of episodes and maybe even seasons to kind of get you in the groove.
Hmm.
And that's what I did. And I literally one night that we've talked about this years ago, I think, Ryan, when we first
Yeah.
started the show. I'm laying awake at night. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm looking through Netflix's hundreds of thousands of things that are just trash. There's like Netflix charges you for, mostly trash. They don't have anything really of value mostly
Until one show comes along.
until one show. And they're like, okay, well, let me try this because everybody's talking about it. First episode, I was hooked. And I think I watched 7 episodes that night. I'm very tired at work the next day. I think what you're talking about with the lull has to do a lot with people were very loyal to Rick Grimes.
Hmm.
And people said, I mean, I remember people saying this, like, how is the show going to go on without him? He is the main character. And while it took them a moment to get their footing, they did find their footing again.
Hmm.
I think they spent maybe a couple too many episodes on really deep character stories.
Hmm.
which may, normally I like a good in-depth character thing,
Yeah,
but some of them were a little much. But you're right; it rounded into form back toward the end, and I've stuck with it till the very end, and the payoff was great.
I had a mosquito fly right in front of me.
I see that.
Do you want me to go to my next one since I was a shared one?
Yeah.
Cool. So number 4 for me. Again, this is a me show. Kristen doesn't like it. I've tried. She'll laugh occasionally, but this is a Ryan show, Parks and Recreation.
Mm.
And you talk about star power that has come out of Parks and Recreation. I mean, actor after actor after actor. Some of the biggest names in Hollywood, from Aubrey Plaza, obviously Chris, Jurassic World and Guardians of the Galaxy, and
Mhm.
Ron Swanson. There's so many good actors in the show. Even presidents were on the show. Joe Biden was in like an episode or two at one point. But the humor was what I needed when The Office ended. When The Office wrapped, um, within a season or two, Parks and Rec is when that really got going. However, if I were to tell anyone out there without giving spoilers, I would say everyone should start Parks and Recreation episode 1, season 3, because season 1 and 2, the tone, the writing, the style of the characters were one thing. The numbers were struggling in the show, and they did a soft relaunch episode 1 of season 3.
Mm. Mm.
So much so that season 1, episode 1, season 3 starts with a previously in the last 2 seasons of Parks and Rec, and literally fills you up on like what you need to know about the show.
Okay, hold on. So just so I'm clear, whole seasons or episodes?
Season 1, all season 1 and 2,
Okay.
the entire show is different than season 3 and after,
Has
and
a
it
different
changed.
feel.
Characters are when the same characters are in the show starting in season 3, they're entirely different people, like
Mm.
personality types.
Okay.
They had gotten rid of and replaced a lot of the writing staff, and that's when the show hit its stride. That's also that episode, season 3, episode 1, is when Adam Scott joined the show. Fantastic actor. And it's also when what's his name? He's also number 2 in the second Austin Powers movie. I forget the guy's name. He's done a ton of things, but he joins the show, and the whole feel of the show changes completely.
Rob Lowe.
Rob Lowe, both him and Adam Scott joined season 1. I mean, episode 1 of season 3. So that's the soft relaunch. That's when the current thing that everyone who's a Parks and Rec fan knows what I'm talking about will say, yes, I can confidently say, if you want to start watching it, skip the first 2 seasons. They're completely forgettable, and I can see why the ratings were tanking.
Mm-hmm.
But what a show. Great actors coming out of it. Really funny episodes. Very nerdy, very political on all sides. They make fun of Republicans, liberals at different parts, and like they essentially poke the bear on the absurdity of politics.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is great because you got to be able to laugh at yourself, right? And it was just a joy to watch. I still watch it to this day. It's not The Office, but it was what I needed to replace The Office when The Office ended off air.
Well, I'm going to talk about The Office next because
Shared one too, so we'll go.
Yeah, and this one may actually be my top. Like I said, mine aren't ranked per se.
It's number 1 on my list, by the way.
But it may be my number 1. The Office is another show that I did not start watching from the get-go. It was a show, and again, this is something we've talked about in the past, maybe on the show, maybe just us together, Ryan. It's a Thursday night, and I'm in bed, and Shannon's out in the living room watching TV, and she is just belly laughing, just laughing out loud. And so this goes on for a while, like multiple times. I remember this happening multiple times. And then one day I said, what what are you watching? What is it that's causing you to laugh? That's not me, because usually it's me. Uh, and she said, you have to watch this show. That you're going to love this show. You're going to find it very funny. And so I did. The next Thursday, I watched it with her, and it is one of the few shows, Ryan, in my life that I literally will laugh out loud, like uncontrollably, like not a snicker,
Mm-hmm.
not like a that's kind of funny, literally like belly laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the absurdity of it, the awkwardness of it, the
Mm-hmm.
awkwardness of the show. One of my daughters, my older daughter, has a real problem with uh, like secondary embarrassment. Like she doesn't like shows that make that she feels the embarrassment of the or the awkwardness of the character. Like she has a hard time with that.
Yeah.
She doesn't really like Will Ferrell that much.
Yeah. In
Um,
his underwear running around screaming.
right. But I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
I love it. It's cringy sometimes. It is but the character backing back and forth and everybody just leaning into the ridiculousness of each of their modes
Mm-hmm.
is just there are very few casts that have that kind of chemistry across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And it lasted. I mean, people say, well, again, it's really hard for a show to continue to be at the top, run
Yeah.
hot for 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
There's some lulls for sure. But that's another show that I think did well by itself right up till the very end.
Yep. It was my number one on my list. Um, I started watching it in season 2 live. I was at a friend's house. His name was Reagan, and I knew him and his sister. And we were having dinner, and he had the first season on DVD, and then he was watching the show, and I'd heard about it, but I hadn't watched it. And 2 episodes in season 2, I'm like, this is if I were to describe to someone my humor style and
Hmm.
things I find funny,
Yes.
it is painful awkwardness, dry, like they're taking it seriously, but you're in on the joke.
Yep.
And then catchphrase, a lot of catchphrases and like quips and sayings. Like I love things that are quotable, and this show, The Office, is infinitely quotable. I wish there was a timer that uh, the apps would say how many times I've rewatched the entire series from the beginning. I have to imagine it's over 10 times, start to beginning, not including random TBS episodes that I always keep on when I see it on TBS.
Well, it's on all
Um,
the time, Ryan. It's
yeah,
on constantly, and if nothing else is on TV, which is often,
yeah,
it's on in the background.
yep,
It's on in the background, and as
yep,
soon as they end the Dwight's wedding ceremony, it goes
yeah,
right back to the beginning.
yeah. It's my I'm cleaning, I'm cooking, I leave it on in the background. I know every word to every episode by heart, but it still makes me laugh each and every time. So much that I stop knowing a part is coming just to
Yep.
rewatch that part. Um,
So Ryan, quotable for sure.
yeah,
What do you think your favorite, or just give me your
I
three,
can give you my favorite episode.
rather okay, you can do that, but rather than give me your top quote, give me three of the quotes that you love.
I'll give you the 3 quotes and I'll give you my favorite episode because
Okay.
I've watched one episode more times than any other episode by far. I love the "Did I stutter?" and Michael trying to play it off as a joke. Like he
Mhm.
said, "Did I stutter?" and I said, what?" And we were just joshing around. I love that line. I love uh, like all of Andy Bernard's stuff.
Mhm.
Like I always go like
Right,
I like
right.
that a lot. And then the classic "That's What She Said" because
That's
that
what he said.
saying took over the world. I
Yeah.
mean, there's not a single person that I know that doesn't occasionally do it. That's what she said. It's perfect. And my favorite episode that I have told people who I'm recommending the show to that they've never seen it, and I want to say, this is The Office.
Mhm.
the awkwardness, the cringiness, and the cringier the episode, my favorite of an episode it becomes.
Absolutely.
The dinner party with him and Jan having everyone over their house. The
Right.
TV pushed into the wall
Uh-huh.
every time. Her listening to her assistant's CD while like caressing herself while everyone else is just sitting there going like,
Right.
"Yep," like all that. The Jim being a smartass, like, "Is that chestnut?" And knowing it's not chestnut,
Right.
he's like, "No, I think it's pine, Nordic pine." He says. And there's one, oh, actually, my number one sayings in that episode, Vince, I left it out. I say this at every dinner party with people who have no idea, never seen The Office. If we have wine and I take a sip, I always say it has an oaky afterbirth.
Yes, I know.
And
I've
some
heard you
people,
say that. I've heard you say that on numerous occasions, even
or
when you
I'll
do
go,
not have wine.
this is a red.
Right.
I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the practical joking that Jim does on Dwight. I'm a practical joker by nature,
Yep.
and so and I love the fact that the practical joking there is rooted in a friendship, even though they don't really acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Right. I also love that's what she said. My daughters say that's what she said, and they've been saying it for a long time. And so it's funny. It's funny to have that kind of camaraderie
Yep.
with your kids. Actually, when we had our exchange student that was living with us for 6 months, a number of years ago from Taiwan, um, he would say that's what she said,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a commonality. Um, snip snap. We talk about that all the time. Snip
That's the
snap,
dinner
snip
party.
snap.
Yeah. That's the
That's
dinner
what
party
that's
episode.
from. Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Maybe my favorite episode. I think my favorite episode is the one where the watermark gets out on the paper of two animals engaged in some kind of husbandry.
But Vince, it
Uh,
appeared to be consensual
it's fair to be consensual, and his apology video, and he ends it with, "You have one day."
why did you say
Which he,
that? They always give an ultimatum.
one day for what? Well, they always give an ultimatum. Yeah. So The Office is probably my number one. Um, cannot recommend that one.
I will write the F word on every piece of paper if you do
Yeah.
not.
The F.
The F word. Great pick. The good news is, so that was my number one. We'll go to my number three. We won't talk too long because we've talked about it extensively because of our conversation about shows. Lost is my number three.
Mm-hmm.
Watched it a million times. I've oozed on the Garnet and Old show enough times about Lost. I won't go too deep into it. But Lost, my number three.
Yeah, and that's a worthy show. I have not gotten to get back into it yet, but it's something that I intend to do. I think it's worth it. Absolutely worth it. Um, let's go with Friends.
That's my wife's number one show, FYI.
So I'm pretty much my wife will say that I'm pretty easy to predict.
Mm-hmm.
There's the things I like, I really like, and it's really tough for me to branch out. And if Friends is on, I'm going to watch it. And I know that there's a whole generation of people that don't get the humor of it, and it could be that it's some kind of thing related to societal things that are going on. I don't know,
Society.
but again, a cast, the right people at the right time with the right, not only the right chemistry on set, but you could definitely tell they had the chemistry offset as well.
Yeah.
Um, that to me is again not my top one, but it's definitely in my top 10.
Oh yeah. I know every episode. I would put it right outside my top 10. It's my wife's number one show, so it's on. It's her Office.
Mm.
So I know every episode. I know every phrase. I've even bought her an ornament with the the turkey on the head.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, all about Friends. Great cast. I'm imagine my number two, since we already did my number one, will also be on your list, Vince, and it was almost my number one, and that's Game of Thrones.
Hmm. Yeah. Obviously in my top 10, near the top, one or two, three at the lowest.
Yep.
Um, Game of Thrones again is another series. I'm not the type of guy that's getting on stuff right from the beginning. Right.
Hmm.
It's another one where I came in and was able to purchase the first three seasons on Blu-ray because it was already going on.
Yep.
And I was able to blaze through and get caught up. And then, regardless of what the rank and file masses believe of the ending of the show, it was worth every moment.
Hmm.
It was worth every second of every moment. The cinematography, the writing, the depth of the characters, the shock of certain things happening that you would never expect. Um, there is some fantasy. There's obviously fantasy stuff in there, but it's not overwrought with
Hmm.
fantasy stuff, right?
Yep.
It is the ultimate power play show,
Hmm.
and if you can get past some gory violence, if you can get past some
Nudity.
explicit nudity,
Hmm.
and if you're okay with some language,
Yeah.
um, I'm telling you, you are not going to find much better TV than the Game of Thrones.
And I owe my watch of Game of Thrones to Vince, who my first day at iVenture, where we worked, said, "Have you seen Game of Thrones?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What?" He said, "What do you mean?"
This is when
And
you were. This is like your
my
onboarding.
orientation,
Yeah.
and he said, "I know you don't know me from Joe over here, but go watch it." I went home that night and I was like, "Hey, almost like I took it as a moment when I came home to my wife as this would be a good way for me to like get to know someone at work, and because you don't know anyone,
Yeah.
and I'll be in orientation for a week, and now if I watch a few episodes, I have something like I can talk to this guy Vince about." And I watched an entire season that night. First episode, admittedly, a little slow. However, the thing that kept me around in episode one was Peter Dinklage.
Oh yeah.
A joy to watch. And then favorite character definitely Arya by a mile. I love Arya. I
Mhm.
think she is a fantastic female protagonist.
I think she's
That
got a new series coming out.
I hope that's true.
Yeah.
Um, but then has also led to my not my top 10 list, I don't think, but could be by the end. House of the Dragon, really enjoyable, like it a
Mhm.
lot. Um, it is the perfect show if you want strong characters that are well written,
Yeah.
and it is infinitely rewatchable. Um,
It is,
and
and I will say that the ending of the show, you got to understand, like some of these episodes took $3 to $5 million to produce
mhm.
because of the breadth of the worlds that they were building. So I can imagine they were like, "Hey, we need to wrap this up. Like the bank's going to close here pretty
Mhm.
soon." So um,
I don't give it as much crap at the end as a lot of people do. I don't actually have a problem with the story. I don't love the decision I'm talking about,
yeah,
but it felt rushed. And what I mean by that is I enjoyed every episode. However, what used to take them 4 episodes to get from point A to point B on a map would happen one episode to the next, like really
yeah,
quick. Like they
yeah,
left one episode and then they were there, and you're like, wait a minute, what happened to all like the there was a lot of early seasons where like the funniest parts were like Jamie Lannister and Brienne on the road together,
right, right.
or Peter
The
Dinklage with
journeys, the
yeah
journeys,
Peter Dinklage
or Barris.
with Varys, like and Varys picking him back up on his feet and telling him like you're good at this, you should keep going.
Yeah,
Like those are the moments I remember, and it's a very very emotional show. We're gonna move on because we're going long. Oh, you have one more.
I do have one more.
Do it.
I have to throw this out, Ryan. My last show. It is in my top 10. Ryan, what is it?
Oh, Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai just wrapped up. Series finale was released last week.
How many seasons?
6 seasons, and this last season was in three five episode chunks. So there are 15 episodes in season 6. And so if you are one of the people that have avoided watching Cobra Kai for whatever reason, if you like Karate Kid at all, if you like the 80s movies, the movie vibes at all, if you like any of that, I'm telling you, do yourself a favor and go on a magical journey in Cobra Kai.
I've seen one season and I liked it.
It There is payoff after payoff after payoff. And let's just say that we've talked about a number of series here where it kind of tapered toward the end. Cobra Kai did not do that.
Yeah.
Cobra Kai stuck the landing in a big, big way.
Doesn't it
And
seem like 5 to 6 seasons is a sweet spot for shows that don't overstay?
yeah, I think so. I think so. If you ever wanted to know, and I don't want to spoil anything, but if you ever wanted to know what happened with Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence, go watch Cobra Kai.
Anytime you mention Cobra Kai, I just imagine you as Mr. Miyagi going in the background. You know, anyone who
Mm-hmm.
watches it. Well, that went an hour.
Yeah.
We'll try to do this next bit in 30 minutes. How about that?
All right, we'll try. We'll try.
It's a good one because I would say it's only in the last couple of years that TV shows have become as important to movies as me, but only because Hollywood has started to just make repeats and reboots and repeats, and they don't do a lot of original content anymore. There's a few on my list, just FYI, Vince, that are, hey, it's one spot, but it's a series,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'll start with my number 10, Interstellar. I'm a space nut. I love space movies.
Is that the
I
one with
love
Jodie
science.
Foster, or is that the one with Matthew McConaughey?
Matthew McConaughey.
Oh yeah.
I love science. I love space. I love drama in space. And so it's a no-brainer for me. The score is awesome. It's a Christopher Nolan film. You're going to see a pattern on my list.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Christopher Nolan, it feels like he gets me. Like when I see his films, there's something that I don't know what it is. I know a lot of people say this about Christopher Nolan, but there's something in his style that's like a mix between Spielberg, very emotional, but then the scores that he works with, like Hans Zimmer on and things like that. And Vince, I don't have to tell you this, you being a band guy, music in a movie can make a movie way better. Like
it's what ties you to the movie. It
so
envelops you. You're in the movie theater, and it's all around you.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I only see movies in theater in the Dolby Cinema now.
Yeah.
In Interstellar, when important things are happening, and that heavy organ, like that, just holding the tone, and just maybe a piano in the background behind it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great movie. I love
it fills
that movie.
you up.
Yeah, I love that movie, and when it's on, I'll watch it. It's not in my top 10, but I love that movie, and it's a mind play, man. Thinking about all that, which I love. Anything that's going to engage my mind and makes your mind go, "Oh, wait a minute! I never really thought of it like that." Right? You've got me hooked. You've got me hooked.
Especially when you know that he went all in on scientists being hired for that film. So a lot of it is based upon real science theory, which is
possibilities.
Awesome.
Yes, possibilities. Let's stick with Christopher Nolan. Dark Knight
is my next one. So we're two birds. Number 9 for me was Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight, back to the Batman mode. I love all the Batman movies. It's tough for me to pick a favorite one, but that's probably my favorite one. It is the right combination of a little bit of dark humor, It's the acting in it is, crazy, crazy good. Heath Ledger, of course, is like a
It's real sad.
legendary because of that. A very different Joker than Caesar Romero and Jack Nicholson. Very, very different.
Hmm.
Um, but the story and the mood and the vibe and the brooding and the
Music.
just yeah, absolutely, and the chaos of it all is just it just grabs a hold of you and it does not let go. uh the Dark Knight is in my top 10 without a doubt.
Yeah, visually stunning, emotional, and it makes me wonder very often. By the way, Vince, Heath Ledger's Joker was supposed to be in the third movie, and man, as much as I do love the third movie in the Dark Knight series, I can't imagine how much better it would have been. So rest in peace, Heath Ledger. Honorable mention, not in my top 10, but Batman Begins.
Yeah,
Really good origin story, really good acting. I really
there are
enjoyed that.
there are people, and I don't discount this. There are people that claim The Dark Knight to be the best superhero movie that's ever been
It's
created.
one of them. It's one of them.
It's definitely in the top three, right? You
Yeah,
probably have to include Superman 1 as part of that
yeah, because
in
you
the
have two. Well,
70s.
you have important movies that started things, and then you have movies that were just the content itself
Yeah,
was revolutionary. A lot of people give like Tobey Maguire's first Spider-Man movie for kicking off this whole new wave of
yeah,
high
yeah.
quality action movies. But great pick, Vince.
Okay, so thinking of ones that kicked it all off and started like a genre like The Matrix.
Oh yeah, I wish I didn't think of the Matrix, but it probably wouldn't have made my top 10. But I love it. It was at
Yeah.
the right time. I was Vince. I was 12 years old when that movie came out, so
Mhm.
of course I love the Matrix. My brother liked it. My sister. It was the right timing, right? That was a good. Is so. I'm assuming that's on your list.
That's on my list, and it was one of those movies again that makes you think, right? For
Mhm.
sure, it's not just mindless. It can be mindless and entertain me. I'm gonna eat
Mhm.
some popcorn, entertain me, but also can make you think. The technology around how that movie was made was cutting edge at the time, so much so that the bullet scene, the scene where he's falling back on the top of the roof. Um, there was, I believe the story is there was someone here in northeast part of Jacksonville that actually helped make that final cut of that because they could not get it right.
Mhm. Yeah, it was
So
revolutionary. Famously, Will Smith was rejected the role of
yeah,
Neo, and
yeah.
what? Now he turned it down to do Independence Day, so um, worked out for everyone.
How's
But
that for a close encounter?
yeah, yeah, great line. Number eight for me is a series because there's I can't pick one out of the seven. The Harry Potter series.
Okay.
Even more exciting that I know that HBO is going to be doing the original Harry Potters season by season starting next year. HBO like an HBO series for each book,
Oh, okay.
which is going to be excellent. It's going to be HBO fied, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But um, I mean, is if there's any other series that is more time and a place, and I was the age that it was geared towards the books, the movies. I mean, I grew up with Harry Potter, and it made me like it even more because Kristen loves it, and so we
Oh,
have
good.
this shared when we met. Like we could talk about it, and the movies were still coming out when we met, and we went to the theme park, and so it's something that we bond over, and it's a great, highly recommended to watch around the holidays. There's some, especially the first couple of movies, it feels very holiday-ish.
Hmm.
The music, excellent
Oh
in
yeah.
Harry Potter,
Yeah.
and some of the most heartfelt movies there are. So number eight, the Harry Potter series.
Okay. Good. Not in my top 10. One that is in my top 10. Clo- probably closer to top 5. Coming to America.
Great movie.
So now we've gone from science fiction and fantasy and medieval Game of Thrones stuff and Harry Potter, and now we're
Eddie
going
Murphy.
now just ridiculous, quotable, um, great writing, great comedic writing, um, and a cast that just bonded really, really well. If it's on, I'm watching it, and there's probably not within the span of 1 month of time. I probably will either have a Facebook post about it, a Twitter post about it, or reference it in some form or fashion to someone else in my life. Um, so Coming to America for me is definitely top 10.
Eddie Murphy, all time, man. All timer. Number 7 for me, Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah, good one.
Forrest Gump is a special film. There's no other film like it that lets you. I think it's the best history lesson you could probably show to someone who doesn't care about school or history, but you want to give them a roundabouts. This is kind of how
Yeah, yeah.
things happened that will keep them entertained and locked in. I was I still am a weird guy, but I was a weird kid where like I was watching this. I think it came out in '93 or '4. I was 6 or 7, and it was my favorite movie when I was a kid growing up. It was something about it, something about the storytelling and me learning about history. I've always loved history, and it's a really important movie. I think it does a lot to keep things real but lighthearted at the same time, and it touched some pretty serious subject matter.
Hmm.
I mean, everything from war to AIDS to everything else. But at the end of the day, what it proves to me is um, something I've kind of known for a long time is people who have special needs or autistic or whatever it is, they're probably the best of us.
Without a doubt.
And that movie makes it really clear that like all the stuff all the normies think are important or
Yeah,
care
we're missing
about,
out. We're
we're
missing out.
missing it.
We're missing out for sure.
Hmm.
I love that movie. It's not in my top 10. I looked at it. I thought about it. There's a number of Tom Hanks movies that
Hmm.
probably, fit that bill, man. That's definitely one of them. I'm going to give you a triumvirate at this point,
Nice.
okay? Which is going to encompass a number of different movies all at once.
Police Academy.
I'm going to give you The Breakfast Club, the Back to the Future series, and the Karate Kid series.
Hmm.
Because to me they all are a time and place in my life, and they were all such well written movies that you cannot put your TV on at any given time and not have one of those movies playing. Now, is Karate Kid 3 the lesser of the three? Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Yes, it
Yes, it
is.
is. Um, is Back to the Future 3 not as good as the original? That's
I,
probably true too.
I like it.
I mean, but I like them all. And so, John Hughes, John Avildsen, they were in their bag, man, during
Yeah,
those
yeah.
times, and it has wrought things that still affect us to this day. When you have kids, it is hard to it, if you can get your kids to buy in and really appreciate the things that you appreciate, either you're a really really good salesman, or the thing that you're presenting to them
Yep.
actually has the juice. My kids love Back to the Future,
I love it. Yeah.
right? My kids, they're not necessarily so much into Karate Kid, but that whole 80s thing, they're both, they get it, right? And
Hmm.
so that grouping there, because it was hard for me to say, I definitely like the original Back to the Future.
Hmm.
And by the way, there's a no, I don't want to spoil it. The Karate Kid, I definitely like the original. of
Yep.
all the three. And of course, Breakfast Club is what it is. And I saw, by the way, the Breakfast Club panel at
Yep.
MegaCon a few weeks ago.
Great picks. Back to the Future 2 is actually in the my favorite of the three movies, FYI.
Yeah,
The
I think
futuristic vibe.
yeah, to go 1, 2, 3 or 2, 1, 3 for me.
Yeah, I love the futuristic, and Biff is essentially Donald Trump in that movie. If you think in the second one, the hotel, and it's very timely, right? Um, Number six for me, really important movie. I probably, depending on the day, would have it higher. Airplane.
Didn't even think about
Um,
Airplane. Yeah, it's good.
me,
It's real
my
good.
dad showed me that movie when I was probably way too young. I mean, like seven, so half the jokes
Right.
right
Right.
over my head. But the joy of that kind of experience is as you get older and you rewatch it, you're like, I get the new jokes. As you get older, you understand it. I think it's the best comedy of all time. That's my just personal opinion. The quotes, Leslie Nielsen.
Mm-hmm.
By watching that movie, it led me to the Naked Gun movies,
Mm-hmm.
and I love the Naked Gun movies so much. But Airplane is a special film. There's a ton of really um, funny moments. I find a lot of similarities in the humor with The Office,
Mm-hmm.
where it's dry. They are taking it seriously on screen, but you're in on the joke.
Yep.
And I really love that kind of comedy. I still all the time will say, surely you can't be serious to people.
Mm-hmm.
My dad the other day, when we were on the cruise, I said, "How are you feeling?" Because we were all sick, right? So I texted him, "How are you feeling?" And he said, "It's too early to tell." And I replied, "You can tell me. I'm a doctor." So all those Leslie Nielsen dry replies,
Yep.
it's a mainstay in my house. It's a family tradition.
Yep.
Airplane.
I love Airplane. Yeah, I speak jive.
Yeah, I
Uh,
do the drink thing all the time.
yeah, it's so good. I'm gonna go comedy as well here at this point. Napoleon Dynamite. Napoleon Dynamite. If you wanted to know like what the depth of VC Knowles' humor is, Napoleon Dynamite is kind of there,
Yeah.
and I didn't know it at the time. So Napoleon Dynamite is one of those movies. It is the movie, and I tell the story all the time. I put it on the first time. I might have rented it from Blockbuster. I don't know, but I had it, and I put it as like I heard some good things about this thing. Let me put this movie in and watch it. I didn't make it barely past the opening credits. I barely got to where Napoleon is throwing his action figure out of the bus. And I looked at Shannon. I said, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life." And I turned it
Mhm.
off. I didn't watch it. Gave it another try later on, weeks later, a couple months later. And I'm telling you, that movie is genius.
Mhm.
It is genius. And if you have to lower your defenses, you have to quit taking yourself so seriously and lower your defenses and get in on that. If you have not
Yeah.
watched it, the first time you watch it, you are going to say, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen." And
Mhm.
then eventually you're going to be like, "Okay, this is quality material."
And it's also led Kristen my wife to roll her eyes each and every time we ever get dressed up for dinner. And I tap her shoulder. I said, "I like your sleeves. They're real big."
They're real big.
Yeah. So, and she just goes, because
Yes.
she's heard it a few times. We're getting to my top five, and these, I would put all five of these in because I'm more of a film guy than TV shows. So these to me are like me encapsulated, where I have seen these infinite amount of times. They're important to my life, not just a film. So they're something that I can rely on to bring me comfort. Two of them are newer, but most of them are. But let's start with the number five, a series, the Lord of the Rings franchise.
Mm,
I love Lord of the Rings to an unhealthy level. I think the life lessons embedded in the works of Tolkien are substantial. I think what it teaches you about struggles and things that you can go through and see the other side of, and framing things in your head a certain way instead of going down the wrong path, and the saying, Frodo, I wish the ring had never come to me, and the whole
Hmm.
so do all who wish bad things didn't happen to them. It's basically make the best of it. You have to do the best at the time you're given. Like those kind of moments in that movie, it means the world to me. I found the movies on my own. My parents were not into Tolkien or anything like that. I just rented the first Fellowship when it came out at Blockbuster, and I've watched those movies a ton of times. I own the extended editions. I'm one of those people. In fact, I think if you don't watch the extended editions, you're not watching Lord of the Rings. Um, but really, really important films. They hold up so well because of the non overuse of CGI,
Hmm.
and it's a lost art doing those and doing that kind of shooting a movie that way. So shout out to Lord of the Rings. Really, really special set of films.
I really, I probably should like those more, but they just never grabbed me. Maybe I need to try it again, because it seems to me like it would be in my wheelhouse. So I need to give those another try. I'm going to come at you with Amadeus. Um,
Rock me, Amadeus.
obviously, obviously, an Academy Award winner. Obviously, the music is timeless because it's Mozart.
Yep.
But the Hollywood dramatization of the rivalry, the rivalry between Salieri and Wolfgang, and just the 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 growing crescendo of all of that is
Mm-hmm.
just a masterpiece, and also a highly quotable movie, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So Amadeus is one of my favorites. I used to watch it quite often back in the day. I don't
Yeah.
watch it as much now, but I used to watch it every couple months or so.
Yeah. That's a similarity. My ex in high school, who I dated all 4 years, she was a drum major of the high school band. It seems like a very important film to many who really love music and music theory. Um, Important film for them. Number four is the newest, not the newest. It's one of the newest on my top five, but it really is this special to me. Inception.
Hmm.
Inception takes one of my favorite actors, Leonardo DiCaprio, who I adore in almost everything he's in. Everything he's in, I'm captivated by his take on it. And there's so many movies that he's been in that I just adore. But beyond that, the concept of that movie, when I first saw it, it was like this is the smartest like written film that makes something very complicated understandable. And anyone who watches it, you probably have to watch it more than once, maybe twice to get everything. But the execution of the movie, I think, is flawless. The performances, I think, are flawless. And I love a good cliffhanger and the end scene. I
Hmm.
won't spoil it, but it leaves you saying, was it this or was it that? Some people hate that movie for that reason, but I love it because I truly believe it's a make your own adventure, make
Sure,
it
sure.
make it yours.
Other
And I
people
love
want to be done with it. They
yes,
want to
and
know. They want to know.
I love the idea of a kick to get out of a dream. Only because I don't know, I don't think I've ever told you this, Vince, but and I know everyone's a little different in their sleep and everything. I dream intensively every night, so much that I remember every night when I wake up. I remember my dreams, and so I think this movie resonates more with me because I have been in dreams that I want to get out of. That I mean, I don't fall backwards into a bathtub, but I kind of snap myself to wake up. And so dreams are a big part of my life because I dream. I don't know why I dream so heavily and remember them every night because apparently very few people have that experience. But wonderful performances, a great movie.
I like that movie. I don't. I hardly ever remember my dreams, and I know that pretty much you dream every night. I hardly remember them. So I'm going to come at you with Goodwill Hunting.
Great movie. Yeah.
Robin Williams is one of my all-time favorites, and whether it's Mrs. Doubtfire or Hook, or
Yeah. Hook.
he could do it all. He could do it all, and his performance in this particular movie is like captivating, right? It's just amazing, amazing work. Of course, um, the writing team of Ben Affleck and uh, Matt Damon. We all know about that now, right? But at the time, like who are these guys, right?
Hmm.
So I love Goodwill Hunting. It's another one that there's some quotes in there. How do you like them apples?
Even The Office quoted it.
I'm going to see about a girl. Son of a
Hmm.
bitch stole my line. Uh, you know, um, Your Move, Chief. Like all these things. It's one of those movies that I will watch, and it's worthy of your time almost every time you watch it. We're getting down to the nitty gritty here, Ryan.
Yeah, I got my top three, man. It's important stuff now. Now, this is the
Mhm.
newest on my list. And I think most people, you get your favorite movies of all time, probably, I would say most of the time earlier in your life because you're in your development phase and maybe a film affects you in a certain way. But I had to put it on there because I think it's a masterpiece and a balancing act, and that's number three,
Inside Out.
Avengers Endgame.
Okay.
For someone who has watched every MCU film and liked all of them, loved some of them, but at least liked them. My worry going into Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame, but specifically Endgame, is there's so many characters that they've written. There's so many backstories. How do you pay it all off? Like, how do you, without it coming off as a soulless nostalgia trip? And that movie, each of them having to go back into the place and time in which the Infinity Stones were, and interact with their former selves or people that were there in a hidden way to the final battle and everyone coming out of the portals at the same time. It is, in my opinion, the greatest superhero movie of all time because my favorite character and someone who I have a lot of respect for, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and the way he goes out in that movie, I literally, Vince, I get teary eyed every single time
That's the best.
because they were able to take a character who is very flawed and even some would say not likable, completely flip him where he's not that way anymore. So much so he didn't want to even be involved in the plan that the other Avengers had because he had learned so much and has a lot to lose now. But to see him still make that sacrifice for those that he loved, so that they can go on, and it's an important film. I think it's clear how important it was because since then, although I have liked the MCU movies, it has not even come close to that level of quality. Here's knocking on wood that some films coming up here, I'm really excited about Fantastic Four, for instance, recapture some of that. But I think Avengers Endgame is from start to finish, there's not a dull moment, and it's an awesome way to start. And shout out specifically because you walk into that movie and you're like, the whole movie, in your opinion, is going to be about them getting back at Thanos. And in the first 10 minutes, they kill the Thanos from the first movie. And you're like, what? In fact, they roll the Avengers Endgame in the music for the movie after they kill him in the first 10 minutes. And you're like, what? It's subversion of expectations that I love in movies.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, so this is going to be something completely different. And that's what they did. And I loved it.
I'll have to watch it at some point.
You haven't watched all the MCU films. And I'm actually
No,
surprised because you like that humor and that fun. And
I do, and I do like superhero stuff. You got to understand. Um, I'm like OG when it comes to that stuff, and I was never really deep into the comic books and all that stuff. So every time Marvel came out with another movie about some really obscure superhero, I'm like, that what are we even doing? Like, I'm a
they made you love
superhero
them.
because I'm a superhero because I can blink faster than someone. It's just
Yeah.
it's like they've got a superhero for everything. So I
Mhm.
kind of got it bad in my brain there. Um, all right, we're to my top three now, and it's really difficult for me to pick of these three. So let's just say that within these top three at any given time, any one of them could be one. We'll start with Rocky.
Good movie. Yeah.
Rocky is underdog story. Everybody's seen Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't, what is you doing?
Yep.
Underdog story, guy that's given a shot, and he does what he needs to do to put his best foot forward, to get himself out of the rut that he's in, trying to find love. Like, it's the whole thing, man. It's the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. The score is fantastic. The acting is, early Stallone, right? Which early Stallone, I think, is better than some later Stallone, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
He wasn't a character yet.
right, right. Shout out to Tulsa King, by the way, which is a pretty good show.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rocky series in general, I mean, obviously, maybe overstayed the welcome on some of them a little bit, but I'll watch them regardless because I love the character.
Yeah.
But Rocky and Rocky 2, between those two, they're definitely in my top three.
Kind of surprise you that my favorite Rocky movie is Rocky Balboa.
Great comeback movie after 5, right? Because 5
Yeah.
was a complete train wreck.
Yeah.
And I watched it anyway, right? Because I love Rocky.
I
But
just like
yeah,
he had an Italian restaurant. I love that.
Rocky Balboa is worthy of the franchise.
All right. Number 2. This might surprise you. I don't think you'd ever guess this about me. Some movie you don't even know why it hits you. Like you have no idea. And it makes you wonder, like, I wonder if it's poking at some hang up or deep, part of you that you is a problem or something that you've dealt with. But number 2 for me, Castaway.
Oh yeah,
So something about being on your own and everything stripped away and the loneliness, and then even when you get back you can't really it really comes to me to a bigger sense of you can go back to your hometown, you can go back to your old groups, but it's never going to be what it was. And Vince, I'm not gonna lie, I bawl like a little girl when his girl has moved on
yeah,
and he's sitting talking to his friend afterwards and he's like, I don't know why I'm so sad. I'm sitting here and I have ice in my glass, and
right,
his friend's like, you just got to move on. You just gotta. He's like, I just have to keep going. I just have to keep going. I can't stop. So I'm gonna start over and I'm gonna do the best I can, but this is gonna be really hard. And something about that movie, and there's some funny parts too, though. Well said, and things that everyone remembers. But something about that movie, and I don't ever put my finger on it really hard, but I think it's the feeling that, because I'm a very nostalgic person, I yearn for the old days and the past, and man, I look forward to getting together with old friend groups or reliving some former team but it's never the same. You might still
right,
enjoy them and you might still see them, but it's not exactly because it was a time and a place thing. And I
Ryan.
think that's what that movie is.
Let me give you a quote that you're gonna know.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that you knew when you were in the good old days when you're
Yep.
actually in them.
The Office. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's
Don't you wish? I believe. I totally agree with you. Like, I try to think every day, right now, that I'm in the good old days,
mm-hmm.
and I got to enjoy them because tomorrow is going to be different, and you're not going to be able to recapture that feeling you have. That movie, I love that movie. It's a long movie. It's a long movie, but it's an epic performance by Tom Hanks to carry that thing all by himself for
Mm-hmm.
that long a period of time. I love that movie.
Yeah, and Tom Hanks, anything he's in, I adore.
Yeah, bosom buddies. He was great
I
in bosom
almost put
buddies.
Big on my list, by the way. I love Big.
Yeah, big is good. Um, we're in my top two now. I've got to go Goodfellas next.
Okay, that's the Italian in you.
Goodfellas is an unbelievable chaotic romp from start to finish.
Hmm.
And the weird thing about it, and is Hollywoodized, and I get that. But the thing about it is based on true things that happened. And of course, whenever you get Pesci and De Niro together, you're going to have lightning. You know, you're going to enjoy that ride. But you know, Scorsese um, is just, you know, he's a master, and
Yes, yeah.
of all things, but mostly anything related to the Italian mafia genre, right?
Yeah.
So um, it's one again highly quotable movie. Um,
Yeah. You
lot of
talking to me?
language, lot of language. Like I'm a clown, like I'm here to amuse you. Um, but it, you know, some of the what's interesting about Goodfellas and you know mafia movies in general, or movies that are based, you know, have a large, you know, Italian framework behind it. I love it obviously because of the actors and the story, but I also love it because of what you were talking about. It's like it reminds me of the personalities that I've had in my life.
Hmm.
And it reminds me of the celebrations that we've had together as a family, as an Italian family. And it reminds me of the traditions and the theme that spans across generations of family is everything. Um, so I have a deep visceral connection
Hmm.
with those kind of movies in general, but with Goodfellas especially.
You know what? You want to know how I
And
found
I
out?
never killed anybody.
Yeah. You talking to me? Um, you know how I found out about Goodfellas? And this speaks to our age gap. The animated show Animaniacs had the good feathers.
Right. I remember.
And I always thought that skit was so funny. And one day when I was a kid, my dad said, "You know that they're making fun of like they're poking fun at like the movie The Goodfellas. It's a gangster movie." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then when I was a late teenager, like 17 or 18, is when I actually watched Goodfellas and The Godfather. And you go back and you watch. I feel like it's a common theme with young adolescent males to watch. Scarface and Goodfellas and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, but it's funny that I got it from Animaniacs. That's where I
Yeah,
first found out.
for sure.
Um, my number one movie is the only movie I've ever considered a perfect film. Score, story, source material, all coming together in a beautiful package, and that is
Hannah Montana,
first,
the movie.
yeah, the first Jurassic Park.
Hmm.
Um, I love Spielberg. First of all, I love almost every single Spielberg film. You know, it's just very, very fills my heart with something different. Like he knows how to tell a story. The source material, which I did, later on after I saw the movie first, but I did have read Jurassic Park, which is way more graphic uh, than the movie. The score is excellent. It's universally beloved. Everyone knows the Jurassic Park score. The casting, a bunch of really at the time, a bunch of no names aside from a
Yeah,
few people,
sure.
and none of them except for Jeff Goldblum really went on to become some big time. You know,
Right,
you
right, right.
you had Kramer on there. Kramer, not Kramer. I mean, what's his name from Seinfeld? Uh, Nedley, the
Newman.
19th,
Newman.
yeah, Newman. But no one was really a superstar from that film, and it's funny because it shares a lot of feelings with what were we talking about before? That was The Office, where it's a bunch of no one knew who any of those people were, but it worked. The chemistry was there.
Hmm.
Watching Jurassic Park from the very moment that the helicopter is headed towards the island, and dun 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 dun. You know you're on a ride, and as a kid, that movie, you couldn't have convinced me those weren't real dinosaurs when I was watching it. And still, because of the non-use of CGI, or
Yeah.
very sparingly used, some of those shots, you're like, it looks better than movies that are made today.
Yeah.
In fact, when I see the new Jurassic Park, which I like the Jurassic World franchise, it's fine. It's fine. It's exactly fine. There's no spirit in it. It's just popcorn movie. But it makes me kind of sad because the CGI. I'm like, Jurassic Park One still looks incredible. But
Yeah, I got sucked into a Reddit post maybe or Twitter thread about the downfall of CGI.
mhm. Yeah, it's
Like
gotten worse.
it's gotten worse.
Yeah,
It's gotten worse.
yeah, and but start to finish, it's my favorite movie. I used to ride my bike to the library to rent the movie from the library over and over and over. I wore out that VHS. Whoever rented it after me from the library, I'm sorry. That tape was burned to the ground after I
Yep.
was done with it. But Jurassic Park, what a movie.
It's a great movie. When he sees the dinosaurs for the first time and is like he's fumbling with his sunglasses is an epic moment. Um, so Godfather,
Yeah.
one or two or both of them, to me, it is the perfect movie. It is the perfect movie from a storytelling to a score to a character play, to the ebb and flow of morality juxtaposed, or sorry, the family juxtaposed against the business.
Hmm.
And again, because of what I mentioned before, it has other connections for me because of my upbringing. Um, the tie-in with family celebrations, the tie-in with food, the tie-in with music. Um, I can watch it from front to back every time it's on. I can watch them sequentially, and if you're going to do that, you better have a chunk of time to allot to it. I appreciate all of them. I appreciate three as well. A lot of people kind of downplay three. I think three is also quite good. It was never going to be what one and two were, but three is quite good. And then the Godfather Coda, um, and then the Godfather chronological version. Like I enjoy them all.
Hmm.
Uh, I like seeing them in their original sequence. I love seeing them in the chronological sequence. Uh, it's one of those things where um, it's not only when it's on am I going to watch it, but there are times when I feel internally, Ryan, like it's been a while. I have to go watch it.
Hmm.
I have to go watch it because
And
there's
that's me.
something about that.
That's me with Lord of the Rings, by the way. I get the
Yeah.
yearning.
So now
It's
we
a
wrap this
great
up.
show.
Yeah. That was a long show. I didn't expect it to go this long. Um,
We owed the members though.
we did. This is like a double show. Um, the Godfather, Laurie McGann says, The Godfather is flawless. And even if two is better, the OG is beautiful. Yeah, she just watched it yesterday. That's what I'm saying.
Also
Laurie is,
they reference The Godfather, Vince, in one of my favorite comedies of all time, which is Robin Hood Men in Tights,
yeah.
which the guy petting the lizard and he has cotton balls and he's like, I can't hear you. He's like, oh, sorry, I just went to the
Yes,
toilet.
that's right. Um, we have a reference to that in Megabyte.
Yep, we
You
did.
know, but just that whole genre, and just say if you haven't seen The Irishman, you should go watch that.
I like The Irishman. Yeah, it was
Also
long.
a great movie, very long movie. But I would like to wrap this up, Ryan, and just say let's both pick one from each to just say to people, if you have not watched this, this is the one.
Okay. I would say I'll do both of mine at the same time. So TV show, I would go to Lost. I think a lot of people missed it because there's early 2000, like 2004, 2005, 2006. So a lot of people didn't have streaming services back then, right? It was just on ABC. And then for a movie, I would say, Vince, and this kind of goes towards you, give the MCU a shot and get to Endgame because it's a
Yeah.
special movies. And I imagine, knowing your daughter's age, that they probably love the
Oh,
MCU movies.
my older daughter loves Marvel in general.
So maybe it would be a time for you guys to watch them together, even if you're separate. Like start on the
Yeah.
same movie and then text each other and watch them together.
In order for me to get through all those movies, I'll be 80 by the time I'm done.
I can tell you, Vince, there's only 18 films till Endgame,
Okay.
and only like 6 of them are duds. So
Right. Okay.
yeah,
And I've seen some of those, by the way. I have seen some of those. For me, the movie that if you have not seen it, you need to give it a go is Napoleon Dynamite, hands down.
Bo Daggett,
And right, and then TV shows, you have to find it within your heart, within your time frame,
Cobra Kai.
to get Cobra Kai under the belt. You've just got to do it, and you can thank me later.
Hey Vince, I bet you I can throw this football over the mountains over there.
It's a liger bred for its skills and magic.
I love Napoleon Dynamite. Very similar to the way I feel about Borat. They're kind of in the.
Yeah, yeah.
I love both of them very much. Pamela. Uh, all right. Well, this was for the members. You are watching this because you're a member and you've hit the join button, or you were gifted a membership from Vince in one of the previous episodes. So if you would like to continue to support us and get episodes like this, which during the off season tend to be, not like maybe
Loosey
live
goosey like
stuff.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. Which it's a lot of fun because you learn something about us, not necessarily about more Florida State stuff. So I had fun, Vince.
I did too. And I have some more things on my list I have to watch now.
Absolutely, man. I could tell you movies. I wish we get back to original. Like, let's make some new stuff, guys. Let's get
Let's make
off
some
of
new stuff. Yeah, let's
as
make
much
some.
as I love Marvel. We don't have to keep rebooting things. We really don't. We can do new stuff. So everyone have a good night. We'll still do our Garnet and Old show 7 o'clock Eastern on Thursday. Until then, screw ESPN still eternally. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. And
Send Chiefs all the damn time. We'll see everybody Thursday. Go Knowles.
go Knowles.